Okay, so we go on to the next. We have two presentations before lunch. And we're trying to get a little bit back on schedule if we can, but we'll see if that works. So next up we have Michele Mees, who is not only an author and TEDx speaker, but also co-founder of the Center of Balanced Leadership. So Michele?
Thank you, Michele. Hi, everyone. As introduced, my name is Michele Mees. I'm a co-founder of the Center for Balanced Leadership. And I have my colleague here, Danielle Moons, also co-founder. So, yep. We've been hearing a lot about gender diversity, gender balance, gender equality. And you'll see I didn't prepare a presentation. I want to share some experiences with you. We founded Center for Balanced Leadership 10 years ago. So I thought let's take out a few lessons learned based on those 10 years of experience. 10 years ago, I was a partner in a consulting company, a marketing consulting company. And one day I received an emailing, something. I found a flyer, a brochure for a training, female leadership. And I thought, that's interesting. It triggered me. So I registered for the training. It was in Ghent, close to where I live. And I thought, I came in the morning. I came in early because it was quite close to where I live. And I came in the morning. There was nobody there yet. And I went to the room, had a look, and I thought, okay, what did you do? You registered for a 2-day training on female leadership. What if this is going to be 2 days of women complaining on how difficult it is and how, then I made a promise to myself. I said, I'll leave at the first break. Nobody will notice. I'll just silently disappear. It was an awesome training, 2 days, given by Danielle. That's how we met, by the way. And the training is today still the basis for one of the products that we have. Center for Balanced Leadership, our mission is to make companies and organizations more inclusive, to have better diversity at all levels and all kinds of diversity. And we do that by working with leaders, female and male leaders. So this program that I mentioned, the SHINE program, focuses on, I would say, unblocking the female talent pipeline, because very often we hear in companies, we have a few women at the top, we don't really have a succession plan, we don't really have a pipeline. So that's something you need to work on if you don't have a pipeline. Other programs that we have that I've spent the last years working on is working with senior leadership teams, mostly male, across the world. I have a wonderful job. I've been able to travel for years and years now and work mainly with male senior leaders on discovering their feminine energy. I'll talk more about that later. Because one of the statements I want to make is, if we want to solve the gender gap, we need to look beyond gender. Now, from what we've heard this morning, and I'll explain myself in a bit, What we've heard this morning is change is slow. You've seen the figures. Change is slow, right? Is slow even the right word? No, okay, we agree. Now, when you take a step back, it doesn't make any sense. It didn't make sense to me because when I started, as I said, I was a marketing consultant, data-driven. So in my mind, the business case has been around for years and years. And I thought, let's set up a company to help other companies to become more inclusive, become more gender balanced, because the business case is there. If you see that, it's so obvious. You cannot not do anything. And I remember one of the first presentations I had was in a Belgian company in finance. CEO and his board, all male. And they asked me, give a presentation about the business case. Come and persuade us that this is something that is good for our business. So up I went with my presentation, all the data, and I gave the presentation best I could. And at the end of it, the CEO said, that's very interesting. So tell me, of these 9 men around the table, who should I fire? And by which woman should I replace them? And then how much more money am I going to make? So I thought, okay, obviously presenting the business case doesn't work. And this is I find it a bit weird. And once you start working on gender balance in companies, there's a lot of resistance. It's very emotional. It's not rational. That was a learning for me. I came in very naive, thinking, oh, this is a rational discussion. Let's solve this. Doesn't work. So, if you want to know what does work, if you really want to quickly change the figures, look at what is happening. When can you really change the figures? We heard it this morning, when you have quota. Quota as in, not as in targets. Quota as in, you are obliged by law to make a change. Then companies make a change. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's something that works. What also works is the Me Too movement. I read an interesting article in the New York Times saying that in the States, the number of men that had to resign due to harassment cases led to the biggest number of women entering those senior level positions. This was a wave of women entering in those senior level positions, unseen. You couldn't replace it with any other program. So these are things, and by the way, what also works is having a female CEO. Figures and studies show if you have a female CEO, you will have more women in business senior management roles, not in supportive roles. If you have a male board or executive committee with 1 woman in that group, you all know, right? The woman will be mostly HR, legal, finance, yeah, supportive positions. If you have that situation, the likeliness of another woman being promoted into that level drops with 50%, 50. Why is that? Tick the box. The board says, oh, we did really well. We have one. Done. Can we get an award? Something like that. So these are things that if you want to drastically change the numbers, these are kind of like the shock treatments. Yes, we don't want to get rid of all the men with harassment cases. We don't want to enforce. We don't want to. So these are the shock treatments. If you don't have a shock treatment, what do you need? And we heard the word multiple times this morning. You need to work on the culture. But we talk so much about culture, but what does it mean? What does it really mean? So when we started, we were a bit foolish because we started end of 2008, beginning 2009 in full economical and financial crisis. So nobody was buying any services. And we said, it's okay. We'll build our vision and our methodology and our model. We'll build that. And one of the things that drove us was it has to be about culture. You all know that quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast? Yes. So culture. But what will the culture look like? And 10 years ago, there was this kind of consensus that if you would push enough women into senior roles, the culture would change automatically. Does it? No, it doesn't. Why? Because you grow from within. So you adjust to the culture that is already there. So it's impossible to ask an underrepresented group to change the culture if they only, if you have this trickle effect. What we all do in corporate cultures and in company cultures is we adjust. You show more of what you are rewarded for. That's how we are as human beings. That's also how companies work. So we described that culture. What does a culture or a balanced culture look like? And we arrived at insights drawn from psychology. who is familiar with Jung, Carl Gustav Jung? Raise your hand. Who is really not familiar? Raise your hand. That's fine too. Jung. Do you all know Freud? Sigmund Freud? Yes? We always remember Freud much better than we remember Jung. I think it's because Freud said anything that is wrong with you as an individual is because of suppressed sexuality. It's juicier, so we remember that better. Jung, as a person, was more balanced already than Freud. They knew each other. At some point, they worked together, then their ways parted. Jung worked a lot on animus and anima, the masculine and feminine in every individual. Call it yin and yang. When we work on balanced leadership, balancing the masculine and feminine, a lot of people say, call it something else. Don't call it masculine and feminine in one person, because it becomes gendered. In essence, the model is gender neutral, has nothing to do with whether you identify as a man or identify as a woman. Because when we talk about gender, what do we talk about? Biological gender or the gender you identify with? I'm telling you, the gender route it's a dead end, according to me. We don't have to be talking about gender. We need to talk about balancing masculine and feminine qualities in leaders and in organizations. So what does that mean? The yin and yang, the masculine and the feminine? Jung said, the personal development of a human being depends on the level of integration of your masculine and feminine inner pole. Does that make sense? So we both have these two energies or two dimensions inside us, men and women. Now, we don't always use everything that we have. We have two legs, and somehow, when we look at balanced leadership, balancing the masculine and feminine qualities that we all have, we tend to try and work like this, and it's not so efficient. So, when we work with people in companies, and we have people do a self-assessment on how balanced they are as individuals, you will see that there is a lot of balance around the table, in teams, in individuals. And again, these profiles have nothing to do with your gender. You have a lot of balance. Then when you look at the corporate culture, and we ask people to, and we developed a game to do that in a playful way. When you ask people to look at their corporate culture and identify what there is too much of and what they are missing, surprise, surprise, what there is too much of, 80% sits in the masculine qualities. What there is too little of, 65 to 70% sits in the feminine qualities. That, again, I repeat myself, both women and men have. So what does a masculine corporate culture look like? Very action-oriented, always in the do mode. Quick fixes, firefighting. Silos, not really working together, maybe competing with each other internally. Silos being led by kings or queens, it doesn't matter. Knowledge is not really shared because information is power, not so collaborative. Focus on I. How can I get ahead in this organization? And focus on profit, which I hear you think every organization needs to focus on profit. Yes. What we see with balanced organizations, if you move from a predominantly masculine organization towards a more balanced organization, you will have a focus on profit and on purpose. Not only profit, but also why are we here? What are we here? What problems are we here to solve? What is our contribution to the society that we are operating in? A balanced organization will have a leadership style that is less directive, telling people what to do, but that is more coaching and empowering people. There will be more collaboration, more innovation, more room for creativity, and all of that. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Now, the question is, how do you build these balanced organizations? Because we are moving, we need to move towards them anyway. Balanced organizations are not only fertile grounds for inclusion and diversity, because if you want to build an inclusive culture, you need to be able to connect people, empower people. So you need a lot of feminine qualities and feminine energy. But it's just plain good, makes business sense. More and more organizations are moving towards networked organizations, flatter structure, getting people to become more of an entrepreneur within the company, taking ownership, all of that. So you need a different model to face the future. And you need balanced leaders to be able to do that. So building a balanced organization is not only good for diversity and inclusion, but also for effectiveness, team effectiveness, innovation, collaboration, and all of that. So how do you build a balanced organization? You work on two things. You work on the culture, as we said, and you work on the structure. Working on the culture means looking at the leadership qualities that you are putting forward as desired behavior of leaders. Are they balanced? What is the type of leaders that we are breeding in this company? Who are the role models? Who are the fast trackers? You cannot be what you can't see. So if the people that you see are the ones that are moving swiftly and smoothly in the organization, if they do not display that balanced behavior, you can go ahead and train other people in the organization, but it will not fly. So look at the leadership qualities. Make them balanced. Train people as well, obviously. Coach people. Culture, and work on the structure. And working on the structure means looking at your value chain from different angles and seeing where do we have structural roadblocks. And one of the things that, is it structure, is it culture? That's a good question. One of the things that I find you need if you want to build a balanced organization is you need to have courage. And I think this has to do with structure and culture, with both. Because again, we've heard it this morning. It's not only about gender, it is about diversity, it is about diversity of thought, And with all due respect for everyone in this field, including myself, but what does it really mean? It means that in a company, we need to become better at giving and receiving feedback, becoming more open, having a coaching approach, an empowering approach towards people, being comfortable with constructive conflict. And the traditional hierarchies, the old model, the predominantly masculine values model, does not value feedback and communication. One of the things that we hear most when we go into companies and talk with people and see what is happening is there is a lack of a feedback culture. It's so simple. In a balanced organization, you have that. That's where it starts. And then diversity of thought. How can you ever harness the value? And we know there is value in having different perspectives. You can never harness it if you haven't trained the muscle to ask for different opinions and to ask for views that are contrary to what you value. So it means by default that the manager or the most senior person is not always right, which can be tricky already in some organizations. So you need to work on different levels at the same time. Now, we also heard about flexibility and confidence this morning. And I want to share an example. When I was about 33, 34, my kids were small. I was working part-time as in 80%. So what is working 80% anyway? It's a sham. You work as much as anybody else, and you pay the company 20% of your wages for the right not to be at the office one day. right? And the effect of it flows into your retirement. So, but anyway, I was working 80% because I wanted to pay my company money for the privilege of not having to be in the office all the time. So my kids were small. I was working in an internet startup company, wonderful company, small team, very engaged, IT, young crowd. And the CEO, he came to me on a Friday and he said, Michele, take a seat. I have something to discuss with you. And he was looking all pleased with himself, so I thought, it's good news. And he said, I want to offer you a seat in our management team. Become the person who is responsible for marketing, but be in that team. We want you in the management team. Don't worry, you can still work 80%. You don't have to give up your flexibility. That's all taken care of. We discussed it and we're fine with it. So please go home, discuss it with your husband, and on Monday, come back and tell us your decision. So I went home and I discussed it with my husband. And I told him, I said, I don't know if I should do it because I have been in that management team. I've given presentations there. They're all highly testosterone-driven alpha males, and I don't think that it's a place for me. I don't think I will be happy there. I will be even heard or seen. I don't know. I don't feel it. And my husband gave the pragmatic answer. He said, don't worry. Take the job, take the promotion, do it for 3 to 5 months, and look for another job. You have the credentials on your CV, you're in a higher pay grade, so the pragmatic solution, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Monday morning, I went back to the office. CEO came to me and said, okay, please sit down. Have you decided? I said, yes, I have decided. Yeah, I said, yeah, I'm not taking the job. And I'm quitting my job. And this man was gobsmacked, didn't know what was going on at all. Because in his mind, he ticked all the boxes. Looking for a young woman, offering the flexibility, offering the job on a plate, all of that. But then culture-wise, it didn't feel like a fit to me. I had no interest in going to that level. But in my mind, I thought, it's not that I'm not ambitious. I want to get to that level. So if I'm really honest with myself, if it's not in this company, then it will be in another company. So if I'm being honest, I should leave now and pursue this line of career elsewhere, which is what I did. So I went home in the evening, and my husband said, and did you take the job? I said, no, I quit. He said, okay, something else will come along. So this is how culture works. Of course, women are not leaving companies to go and take care of babies. Yes and no, but if you look at women with a higher education, no, that's not what happens. They go and leave your company to go and be and shine somewhere else. So, so that's how culture works. And now I understand what happened. But then I was much younger and I had no idea about the masculine, the feminine, all of that. I didn't know. I just felt that it was off, that it wasn't me. And I think this is what is happening, what we see happening in a lot of companies. People looking upward and thinking, no, thank you. So if we talk about talent stalling, it's not only women who are stalling. Some types of men as well look up and say, no, better not. So either I stay here and I do the job and I am comfortable and I'm a bit in my comfort zone, but I earn a good wages, so it makes me happy. I can do other things as well. Or if they're not satisfied, they will look elsewhere. So that is what culture means in a company. By the way, the CEO, last year I spoke at an organization called Board Coaching to Excellence, who works with board members and has lunch and learn sessions. And they asked me to talk about diversity and inclusion, and I gave this example, and the CEO was around the table. And afterwards he came to me and he said, can I ask you a question? By the way, was this about me? I said, yes, it was about you. um, so yeah, we cannot always put the finger on what exactly is happening, but still your intuition, and that's also balance. Not only making decisions based on your rational, the facts and figures analysis, but feeling in your own personal compass that something is off. So we already heard this morning as a woman, and it's very true. Be mindful of who your partner is. You need, and not only the partner, but you need a supportive tribe, I would say, a network around you. So be mindful of the partner that you choose, but also be critical of the company that you choose. You have extremely valuable talent to offer, to bring. So don't settle for an organization that will not make an effort to let that flourish. And I see some faces looking at me thinking, okay, is that a difficult message? A bit, yeah, silence, so I think yes. Okay. You know, there is no shine on something without having a good rub once in a while. So sometimes it's having the tough love or tough messages as well. Another thing that I want to mention is courage. I already mentioned courage. So building a balanced organization, yes, that's what you need if you want to have truly meaningful, lasting, sustainable change. Also, you need to have an organization that is willing to hold or have uncomfortable conversations. We need to tell it like it is. We need more facts and figures and data from the company. I had a client once, and I had the first conversations, and they told me, I spoke with different people in the company, and everyone said the same thing. Oh, we are a competence-based company. We are a meritocracy. Only the best and the brightest get hired, so we only have the best. And everything is objective, transparent, rational. You can go and look in our talent management systems, pull out the evaluations. Everything is in the system, and it's objective and rational. So, okay. So when you start off with a 50-50 population, male and female, at the beginning of careers, and you end up with, I don't know, 15, let's say 10 to 20% women at the top of the organization. And if it is truly a meritocracy, so what you're saying to me is that you're hiring women who are subpar, who are not performing as the men do, because they're not advancing. So look deeper. What is going on? We looked into the feedback that employees were given at different levels with a statistical analysis, a content analysis on words that are used to give feedback to men and women. And we found, and this is confirmed with international research from all sorts, but we found that men and women get different types of feedback. Men get more functional feedback. If you want to move to the next level, do this, develop that, become better at da-da-da. Women get more attitude feedback. Yeah, we perceive you as being too harsh or too emotional or very difficult to navigate. So if this is going on in your organization, make people aware. Excuse me. Let me have a quick. Oh, my glass disappeared. Okay, I had a glass, but it disappeared. So when this happens in an organization, call out. Thank you. What we heard this morning, and we hear it so often, when you have a discussion on is somebody good enough to get promoted or to go to the next level, if somebody says, that's a woman, how will she be able to handle work-life balance with this kind of responsibility? Flag. Call out. This is intervention in the moment. So you need the courage in an organization. You need to give people empowerment to be able to have these difficult conversations. And that's where it starts too. So this is a complete overhaul of how we do things. And it is not so, I would say, something that in Belgium we necessarily embrace. So we have something to learn there as well. So to conclude, my message in the beginning was we can only solve the gender gap if we look beyond gender to the masculine and feminine qualities that we all have, but that we don't use in our organizations. We need both the masculine and feminine qualities to build inclusive cultures, and we need to become a lot more courageous to address what is really going on. Thank you.
Dankjewel. Ik zal je de microfoon geven, maar ik zal eerst even wat...
presentatie geven?
Staat erop. Oké. Oké, de volgende spreker is Claire Godding. Die is de Senior D&I Expert voor FEBALFIN, de Belgian Financial Sector Federation.
Okay, thank you. So it's the first time ever I'm speaking from this new role, because I've been like 30 years, and I guess some people know me, 30 years I've been in the financial industry, but was working as inside BNP Paribas Fortis. So at first as a banker, then in HR, and the 10 last years as the responsible for diversity and inclusion at BNP Paribas Fortis. Also with a team with me, so that was quite unique. We could do only focus on that. And by doing that, it's true that we achieved several results. And at a certain point, I thought, okay, 10 years, is it not time to do something else? But I didn't want to do something else. I just love to make diversity and inclusion progress and discover new aspects and be triggered. And so I went to the CEO of FEBALFIN and I said, well, maybe as what we have built now inside the banking sector, I feel, and I will tell you a word about it, that the financial sector is kind of bubbling with gender initiatives, with a new openness. So why would I not like take a role in that? And that's how I made the first career change in my life. I mean, at least the first employer change. Today, I wanted to give you a bit more info, or a bit more views on what in 10 years' time I considered as the most powerful element to make gender change inside an organization, which is the strengths of role models. And that's really something I want to share with. Just need the button. Okay. At first, maybe I wanted just to add one aspect. You've seen in the KPMG presentation, for instance, several of the reasons why. At BNP, we experienced a few, 2 years ago, that coming on with a new dimension of the reasons why was quite powerful. And that, of course, clients are diverse. That's a fact. That's collective intelligence. I mean, I've sensed, and it's interesting because also in executive committees or in management teams, that's really something which triggers people. If you can explain them how collectively they are more intelligent, because it's the sum of all these different experiences which combine and which allow them to think out of the box, to be more innovative, but also to watch risks even better. Because if everyone with the same culture, with the same experience, life, sort, model, is looking at the situation on the same way, you're sure also to forget some aspects. And so really, I think that's just one thing I wanted to add on. It's really, yes, collective intelligence is absolutely a good reason why, and that works in management teams. So it's really something we can add. And of course, it plays an important role also to retain and attract talents. I also found that study, which I liked very much. It's the study of Eric Larson, which was published in Forbes 2 years ago. So Eric Larson has a company in Silicon Valley selling tools to help to decision making. And he said, well, there's something very interesting when we analyze the quality of decision making. And that one, the first time I showed my CEO of the time, he didn't like so much. It was like, yeah, sorry guy, but when you are in a group which is like totally homogeneous, same generations, same gender, same origins, we are in Belgium, same language, well, you are only probably taking the right decision in 58% of the cases. While the minute you add a real gender mix, so just as Michele said, not with one person, but with a real mix where everyone can be truly himself, herself in the discussion, then you jump from 58 to 73. And then if you add generations, if you add the cultural component, it grows even more. I've used it a lot, and really I can tell you, for instance, in one of the management teams we had in one of the regions in BMP, I used this model to work on them because they were the only region on 10 regions which did not yet have a fully mixed management team. And based on that, they immediately decided, because they could not promote someone new, to start with a kind of shadow management team to at least be able to be like in a mixed group to discuss things and to come with better decisions. So that was at least a first step. And in the meantime, I've led for a few weeks and they already promoted a woman at that level. So that's a good news. Okay, so that was what I wanted to tell about the reasons why. Now I would like to make a small exercise with you. I heard already a few times this morning the word guilt feeling. Can I ask you just to close your eyes a few seconds, really, and to think for yourself, when was the last time that you felt guilty at work? At work or because of work? Because you were not at work. Because you had to announce a pregnancy, because you would start a maternity leave, because you would arrive later today, or maybe have to leave earlier, because the little one is sick and you are still working. Okay, how does that feel? You can open your eyes. You recognize something? Yeah, that's indeed typically much more happening to women, and there's no reason to do that. It's really, we need to keep saying that, I mean, we need, of course, it's excellent when we expect a baby because it's good for the society, it's good for the economy, so that's absolutely no reason to feel guilty. The colleagues will develop new experiences because you are not there, so they will have to take your tasks as well. That's perfectly fine. You are arriving late, that's okay too. You are in maternity, you develop new skills, and the company will benefit from these skills as well. You become better at organizing things, but also you develop a new kind of leadership. So really, this thing about feeling guilty is totally working on the opposite direction of becoming ambitious. So I really think it's important to address that. And then I have a little story. Somehow a few years ago, I had to invent that story to help men understand why this aspect of role models was something so important for women. Because they kept saying, well, I mean, it's just the same stuff, we don't see any difference. So I told that little science fiction story. Let's imagine that 20 years ago, Earth was invaded by the Martians. Okay? So the Martians arrive on Earth. They are all green and they all have tentacles. Okay? And by a lack of chance, they have a deep interest in your company. And they trust the 3 first levels of hierarchy of your company. So from that time on, when you look upside, all the 3 first levels are only green people with tentacles. You don't look like them, clearly. So what do you do at that point? Some of you will say, well, the good thing is Martians did not yet invade other companies, so I'm quitting and I'm starting in a company where at least I will have my own chance. That's a possibility. A second one, which is very frequent, is to say, I don't get any luck to be promoted, but okay, so I will continue working, but forget the ambition, forget the good energy. Let's just do routine work. Second possibility. The third one is to say, well, and it's very frequent, is to say, well, you know what? Let's take a bit of green paint and let's pretend I have some tentacles. And maybe they'll take me as one of them. That's why I think we should never throw stones to women who tend to become more masculine, because that's a survival thing. And I've known a few of them at very high level, and when they had the chance all of a sudden to be in a bit more of an inclusive environment, they were becoming themselves again. So I really think we should not throw stones at them. But there is still another solution. What would be that solution? You can quit, you can work without enthusiasm, you can pretend you're green. Who finds the last solution? What can you do? Yeah, be different, change, be the role model, be the first one to be not green at that level, so other ones will follow you. Yeah, that's exactly that. And of course, as we will have also some sport figure today, I wanted to share an extraordinary role model, Catherine Switzer, which indeed, you know her? So 50 years ago, she ran her first marathon. That's this terrible image there. It was not allowed. Marathons were forbidden for women because they were supposed, like the typical overprotection, it's dangerous, your body is not ready for it, don't do it. So they tried to stop her. And 2 years ago, she did it again at 70. And yeah, I mean, she inspired obviously so many women. And that's also something, I mean, if you think for a minute, a marathon, who on earth would think of running 42 kilometers if you didn't have role models? That's evident for me. I wanted to share a few very concrete experiences of what I saw in the bank when we put in place some new changes in role models. Like 7 years ago, we had a problem. We were just starting with our diversity and inclusion actions. We were watching the branch managers situation at BMP. And at the time, it was very bizarre because just the level under branch managers, we had 50-50 men, women, and we had only 24% women as branch managers. So we started a very concrete action. Top down, which was the head of the CEO of that business decided, look, every year on the total of new appointments of branch managers, half have to be women. We did that, and at the same time, we did lots of bottom-up actions. Very, informal meetings, vrouwencafés, informal meetings between some women who were very comfortable in that role and some women who thought, well, would I try? Is this something for me or not? We tried different things. And after 1 year of hard work, we measured, and for that year, we had achieved on the new hires of branch managers, half were women. Good. So a second year, we do the same. We remain with this message. Don't forget, half of the new promotions as branch managers need to be women. At the end of the second year, we measure, and we have achieved it. And then I have a question for you. The third year, we are busy with lots of different things, and we forget a little bit to mention it. We don't give real instructions. The bottom-up actions are a bit less present. What do you think happens at the end of the third year? Well, in fact, it continued exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. And so, in a few years' time, we moved from 24% to 43%. And it's very objective, it's very factual. And why is it so? Well, we changed the role model in the unconscious bias of the women themselves, who, when they were looking to next steps, they said, okay, yeah, maybe I can do it because I can identify myself with this one and this one. And it seems that they are doing it really well. But on the same time, we were addressing the unconscious bias of management and of HR. Because when HR and management had to say, okay, we need to replace John, and who is a bit like John, should we find someone like Marc or Pierre? We can say, okay, John is leaving. Who is a good replacer? Maybe someone also like Marie or Christiane, who are doing a great job since 2 years' time. And so since then, we didn't have to act, and it continued to improve progressively. And the good thing was also that it also improved at the higher level. So nearly automatically, some of these women, after a few years, went also to a senior level, and so that helped also to have all the regions becoming diverse. And I want to share a second one, which is incredible on the fast aspect. So one of the regions had a business manager, and again, for the few ones of Fortis in this room, I will not mention which region. And in that region, there was no woman at all in the management. And the guy who leaves is replaced by a woman, and he says to her, well, you know, I'm very sorry, I guess there are not really ambitious women in this region. And the lady just genuinely believes him and says, okay, well, bad luck, but so she doesn't plan to do anything. But in 12 months' time, all over that region, ambition shows, and women come to talk to her, and women apply to jobs. And in 12 months' time, her management team had become more than 30% women, and as per today, it's still like 50-50. So it went really, the difference was in a few months' time. So I thought that was quite impressive. So it impacts many, because it impacts not only that level, but very soon the other levels, and the long-term effect. I have another story which I will not tell, because I mean it's really a very, very bad story, but just to say that works also for bad role models. If someone comes into the place and is truly disrespectful, creates a culture of fear, is aggressive, doesn't show respect, in fact, it's extremely contagious as well. I've seen people who were very respectful persons, very correct persons, start cracking sexist jokes just because of conformity to the guy and higher. So the quality of role models is so important, really. So that was a thing I wanted to share with you. Then, when we want to have impact on inclusion, it's indeed much more than role models. I won't go into details, but a few things are very important. During my last months at BNP, I was also thinking, and not as specifically related to BNP, but I do think that in corporate culture, very often there is one elephant in the room that nobody addresses. It's fear. Fear at work is a big problem. And you mentioned courage also, Michele. I think that indeed courage is fundamental, but it's fundamental to call the things exactly as they are. If that people are allowed to share their fears and to say, well, you know, I do not feel like I may express my thoughts. I do not think that I will given a second chance if I'm failing. So I think that's really an important point. So measure, I could have shown you, I do think that we need to measure exactly where are the women on a very specific range. We've started a methodology which in my new role at Febelfin, we want also to encourage all banks to follow, which helps to see exactly where your glass ceilings are. In fact, the problem of a glass ceiling is that you are not supposed to see it. But if you measure very systematically, level by level, from the entrance to the highest level, and this not only at the global level of a company, but department by department and region by region, then you know exactly where you need to put your energy. And that makes a big difference. For instance, at BNP, all of a sudden we discovered that we had one business of 2,000 employees, which was perfectly 50-50 from the first to the last level. Well, when you know that you can take the managers of that business as role models, for instance, to other businesses, and it all of a sudden creates the feeling at the top level of a bank that it is not like a malediction that it's this stuff of gender is not possible. Yes, and even inside it's possible. So I do believe really knowing exactly where and when we lose women is fundamental. So measuring, encouraging networking and curiosity. Curiosity is probably the first of competencies for a changing world. So it's really important. And a culture of respect. It's also linked to this thing of fear. It's absolutely important to dare to address unacceptable behaviors, to address sexism, to address heavy jokes. We also know that the more a business is homogeneous, like very, very male, the more there is risk for sexist jokes, possibly homophobic jokes as well, racist jokes. So it's really important to be able to address that. Just a word on be attentive, not all role models are the good role models. What do I mean? You have the too perfect. We all know that some women, you don't know how, they have like twins, they are nearly CEO of a company, everything is still perfect, their brushing is always perfect, they are on time in every meeting, they know just everything, and you just feel, oh, it's not a role model for me. It doesn't work. It's not possible. So that's the first thing. I mean, we should not try to be perfect. We should not have perfect role models. Perfection is the worst enemy of career also, like guilt feelings. Really important. Then the not applicable. I remember one of the first initiatives we did with these candidates in new roles of branch managers was to meet 3 role models. And I will never forget one of these 3 role models. She was like, 24 hours a day, she was for the company. She was unmarried, no family, just focusing on work the whole time, workaholic as a really crazy. And the women around the place, a few were pregnant, a few were just back from maternity leave, they were thinking, that's not my model. I mean, it's really, so that's also important. The 2 conform as well, because what I mean by that is really a role model is someone also who is ready to change the rules for you, to change the rules for the next ones, to dare to say, well, you know what, we will work on a different way from now on, to say, you know what, this meeting was long enough, let's stop it. Male profile, I've experienced exactly the same good results I mentioned with you with one region when a woman came. I had exactly the same experience with a man arriving, which was also so inspiring, such a good person, so able to see talents everywhere, that in his region as well, the impact was unbelievable fast. So I don't say, don't forget, don't take male role models. I just mean, just as you mentioned, Michele, it's more like a role model full only of male competencies and much too much on getting things done without indeed the purpose cannot be necessarily a good one. And then I think it's always important to attract the attention of role models on the fact that when they work too much, then the people who admire them and who look up to them will also work too much. So be attentive to not propose too much workaholic role models. And if you are in a position of being a role model and having to work very long hours, then at least address it as clearly as possible with your teams, that they know that they are not supposed to copy you on that, and that you will only do it the time you need, and that it's not a good thing. We all know that workaholism is counterproductive, is also not good in terms of capacity of thinking out of the box and all these things. So voilà, that was my message. Now I just want to tell you also about, how can I put this? I wanted to share this story of spheres of influence. That's something I do believe enormously. It's a bit what I did also when I thought, okay, I'm a bit too much in my comfort zone at BMP and I can move to the sector. But I do believe that partnerships, networks, associations that we create allow us so much to grow. So it's absolutely mutual benefit. In place of sharing the cake, we make the cake larger together. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced about that. And I would like to share you a recent initiative. Actually, it's really a grassroots network initiative of the whole financial sector, so the banks and the insurance companies together, which started around 1 year ago. And very interestingly, it started with one very, very small bank, which was at the roots of it, which was Bank New York Mellon, and with a lady at the National Bank, and there were not many ladies at the National Bank, and with a few of us of different banks, and just together to think, okay, how can we make sure that the whole sector is moving in terms of gender? And the obvious thing was to say, well, let's write a charter which is committing, which will help to make every bank or insurance companies ask themselves a few fundamental questions and try to move. It will not be magic, because if it's too strong, they will just not sign. But the good thing is, in the meantime, in 1 year time, on the 17th of June, we will have the event at the Belgian Financial Forum, where already we have like 350 people enrolled. So that's exactly the full time of the full size of that auditorium at the National Bank. And 16 companies already committed to sign the charter, which means we are covering 80% of the whole financial sector with this charter. It's a charter about having to measure, and we will help them to measure. So making sure that every company is measuring the gap and also the possible salary gap, that they need to appoint someone, possibly, of course, depending on the size, who has other responsibilities as well, but also to start making a real plan. And together with Women in Finance, we will provide a few tools, a few means, so that they can, not feel too much alone on this. On the same way, we've built, like 4 years ago, DMAB, Diversity Managers Association Belgium, which is just an association of all people in that crazy role of being a diversity manager in totally different companies. We come together every 2 months just to share practices, the best ones, the worst ones. And that's also, getting new role models as well. So that was most of my story. This is my last slide. I just think, as a conclusion to all of you, because I understood that this seminar is also about women who want to empower their own leadership, so who want to progress. It's not only about how do we make the companies progress, but it's also about all of you present in this room. So I would clearly say, don't forget to avoid guilt, to address fear when it happens, and to find yourself the right role models. And of course, to be one for the ones who follow, so that we keep progress and that we optimize our collective intelligence, because that's, after all, the essential, that the business world is as intelligent as it can to face all our challenges for the future. Okay. I don't know if there is a question or a reaction. Yes? Oh, wow, that's a question. Wow. I think I have so many. Well, I can tell you about one. I will mention Antoinette d'Aspremont-Linden. That's a fantastic woman who is absolutely not young. I think she is in her late 70s, and I hope she doesn't hear me, because if she's younger than that, I'm dead. But Antoinette joined the board of BNP Paribas Fortis like 8 years ago, and she joined it, and she knew it just because she was a woman, and just so that the board could tick the box. So that was, of course, not easy for her, but she was an extremely smart lady. She had done I don't remember if it was like Stanford or MIT in technology, when there were like absolutely no women as an engineer. And very soon, as she joined the board of BNP Paribas Fortis, she's a person which is self-confident, but very humble. if she doesn't understand something, she will just say, sorry, can you explain again? And I guess lots of men around the table are very happy that she asks, can you explain again? So, I mean, she brings lots of good things. And I've used her also as a kind of mentor. So I just invited her, by the way, this morning to the event of the 17th of June. And I know it's very important for her too. So, yeah, very good question. You took me by surprise. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a little change in the schedule due to Justine's schedule herself to be on the court at 2:15. We have to do this session before lunch rather than after, so I hope you don't mind that we'll do it now. Okay.
Thanks.
Chairs in.
Yes.
Can you do this thing up? Yeah. Oh yeah. Hooplan. All right. The video.
And now 2 championship points for 21-year-old Justine Anna Arden. And she's done it! Justine and Arden.
2 sets to love. 7-5, 6-1.
What a fighter. What a champion.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justine Anna Arden.
Rather than introducing by words, I thought that was more appropriate, you know? Do that. So, all right.
Hello, everyone.
Sur la ligne, ça commence bien.
Yeah, we can watch it again, but maybe we'll... I think they're going to do the screen up, but anyway. All right. So, I have some questions prepared, and then we'll hand it over to you for other questions. So, we're talking about empowering women, obviously, so this will be about sports, maybe tennis in particular. So, first question. How did you experience gender inequality during your professional career?
Well, I hope not to disappoint, but pretty good actually, because I was living a lot in my bubble. I haven't really been open to a lot of things during my career. I was living with my close entourage, and also I had the chance to grow up with 2 older brothers, and it's been a big chance, as I said, in my life, because as the little girl of the family, I was really protected, and I've been lucky in my education for this, and so I think that gave me the good things to start my professional life. But in tennis, we will have more, probably more opportunity to discuss about that. We're still lucky to compare to other sports and to different worlds also. But at the time that I was playing tennis, the women's tennis was very recognized by the media, by the fans, and by a lot of people. And I always worked with men in my team. Also because it's, I think it's very easy to explain, is for a coach to get invested and to travel for 35, 40 weeks during the year. It was the case of my coach. It's hard with the kids for that, but for a mom it's even harder, I think, and that's probably the biggest explanation why we don't have more women traveling on the tour. But with my team, I never had any problem for this, and with the male players, I didn't really fight myself, but it was tough sometimes when they had the feeling that because they were more powerful and showing more power on the court means that they were better. I heard that a lot. It's not the same sport, it's a different kind of game, and I can agree on certain things, but I always kept a lot of distance from that, but I have to say that things have improved a lot, and I've been lucky because it's not in every sport that you have a Billie Jean King. Billie Jean King has been a player working a lot, winning a lot of tournaments, and she has been fighting for women in tennis for so many years. And now we're getting close to a situation that really is good for women, very close to the men. But it's not in every sport that you have this. If you take golf, the differences are still very big, and they don't have really an image and someone who fights. So I've been lucky also that I could have my career, in this sport with this kind of woman, that's for sure.
Do you feel that now, or even when you were around, your achievements were less recognized than the males?
Not by the fans, as I said. I really arrived on the tour when there was when women's tennis was very popular. When I arrived on the tour, the big names, it was Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, Arantxa Sanchez, and then the Williams sisters arrived, and I think that they also have been big fighters on the court, and they showed with their personality that impossible was nothing, and in the game. So I really got on the tour at the best, I think, of the women's tennis. So the prize money was much more different at that time, that's for sure. Also for the sponsors, I think the men's earn more money, that's for sure, and probably even more today than when I was on the tour 15 years ago, because I think now the women's game became a little bit less attractive because of less personalities. I think it's something that is very important, that people, they can recognize they can compare someone, they can admire a personality, and I think that the game misses a little bit of that right now. But when I got on the tour, it was fantastic. I think that the people were expecting the women's matches as much as the men's matches, and it's a little bit why the men's, they fight also a little bit for this today. Not all of them, but some of them. It's because they have the feeling, okay, the fans, they come to watch us and not the girls now, and so things have changed a little bit, but we always try to explain that we have other qualities than only the extreme power, even if Serena, Venus, and some other players put the game physically at another level, but we try to show that it's not only by hitting hard the ball that that you do something good. I'm still 1 meter 65, so it's not that tall to play tennis as professional. But I just try always to show something else, that with the technique, with a good vision of the game, and not only with the physical power that the men's love to bring, even if we have a Roger Federer that not only didn't bring physical power, but elegance and technique, and so, but we can show something else. And I was a bit mad when I was hearing some guys saying, but it's not the same sport because the girls don't hit so hard, you know, and but we can do different things, and I've been lucky, as I said. Tennis was so attractive, and we need big names that win and that stay there for a long time. I think the men's game is it's gonna be a little bit in trouble also when Federer, Nadal, Djokovic will go away, because it's a new generation, society changes a lot, and consistency in the results will become, I think, more difficult with all the distractions, with the new communication, with everything. I think it's a little bit harder to be at the high level today than it was when I was there. So, but I've been very lucky, that's for sure.
Now, you mentioned women can do different things. It doesn't have to be just power. How does that translate into girls now wanting to become a tennis player, or even beyond that in life? What are the strengths that you see that women have that men really don't?
Oh, it's a tough subject. Huh? It's a good question. I never really. I always thought as human being, and that in a couple, in a family, we can be complémentaires. So I never really saw it this way, because we talk a lot about the sensibility of the woman, and maybe in the game it can make the difference, that's for sure, but I never really thought it that way. I think that we are different in certain approach, but we say how the girls show more emotions on the court than the guys. But at the end, when you look at it, the girls, they are more in the reaction. So there's something that happens, good or bad, they react. They can cry sometimes on the court. They can. So we show for. But if you look at the players, the male players that won Grand Slams, you don't see a lot during 2 weeks. But at the end, the emotions they show is even bigger than the girls. So I think that we are all full of emotions. It's just that when we show it and how we live it, it's just a little bit different. In my experience now, the thing for the girls is how we coach the girls is completely different than from the boys. That's for sure. And a lot of coaches, in my experience, there still has a lot of work to do with that because most of the coaches are men's coaches, and the approach with the girls is completely different. Girls need to that we explain to them. I think in life, but in tennis, I talk about tennis now. They need that we explain to them a lot of things, that we listen to them a lot. If we have they need to feel that we are there for them. And I see that in my academy now with the young girls and the young boys. It's the approach is completely different. The boys getting more independent, and they don't want that we have behind on their back all the time. And if they win or they lose a match, they want to know straight what happened. But with a girl, I would take more time to say, okay, we think about that, because now it's too emotional. So we have to take some distance. With my coach, with Carlos, for example, when there were a lot of emotions and a lot of adrenaline, we really took the time. Sometimes it was 3 days before we had a debrief. And the girls, I think it's good to take time to do that, but the boys, they want to know straight, and they are able to take some distance from the emotions. So the way we coach is very different, and I think on that part we still have a lot of things to improve, because the male coaches sometimes don't realize that just one thing they're going to say to the little girls, they're going to have a certain perception, and they don't want to hurt, but at the end it's the result. So we have to improve on that part. It's a point in my academy that we try to pay more attention, and now we're getting better on this part.
Okay, last question for me before we hand it over to the audience. What experiences from your tennis career do you use most now that you have your own, academy, your club, and all that?
It's a completely different story, because it was when I was playing, it was my own company, but I was almost not alone. But I was on the court, and I could take my decisions by myself. And when I had to take the ball and go to the net, it was only me. Now I have to work with people, and it's my biggest challenge. Is human resources, and trying to be a leader and a good manager. And but I try to accept that we need time, to build. It's something very, very important in my career. I've been lucky to work with the same coach for 15 years, and I had my long-term vision, but we always have been able to be in this moment right now. So thinking of where we were going to go, but not to rush, to really go step by step and to build and to take the time. And I think that now when I look at the players, and if we put something in place, they want to see the result straight. And if they don't get the result straight, okay, we have to change something. And I think that sometimes you have to change, but I think that sometimes you just need time also to build your stuff and to keep the long-term goals, and that everything is very clear. And I try to take some kind of honesty also, because when you are a tennis player at this level, I've always said that we, as the athletes, we are very happy to do sports and to live from that, because it's a life that you have a lot of emotions. And when you're on the court, when you have 15,000 people looking in you, and some are watching on TV, and it's just you and yourself, and you go very deep in your emotions and what you have to give on the court, and you cannot lie. You cannot go to meet the press after the match and to say, I was feeling good on the court, because everyone saw that you were not feeling so good, and you have to find the answers all the time. So it's a life that challenges a lot, And I realized in my career that it's better when you're able to face the situation and to try to deal with it, and then to say, okay, it's the others, it's my coach, it's the umpire, it's my opponent. Nadal says when I'm on the court, it's only me that is responsible, and I try also to take that from my first life, the responsibility and facing ourselves with our good things, our bad things, and trying to improve every day.
Great. Who has a question? Yep.
I'm involved in football, so I take most of the things that you say and I see it every day. And one of the things that lately came into light was one of the BBC pundits, Alex Scott, who was playing for Arsenal. She came out saying that there's quite a lot of negativity regarding her. She gets lots of abuse via social media. And I see that in our careers as well. We sometimes are faced with negativity, criticism, comments. When somebody is negative towards you, be it their feedback or maybe they are right, maybe they are not right, how do you make yourself strong about this and how do you deal with this?
That's a good question. I feel very lucky and happy that I didn't play in this time right now with the social media and the fact that we can share anything so quickly. And so it was different. It doesn't mean that I've never been facing anything negative or any criticize, which sometimes were fair and sometimes were not fair. So, but I think this time right now it's really hard. And football, women's football, is not also not that far. I think that now we have fantastic competitions, more in the media and everything. So I think big improvements have been done, but still there is a long way. But to answer really the question, my coach was telling me after a few years, every time you read the press, good or bad, you lose a set. And and I realized that he was right actually, because what does it give us at the end? The good stuff or the bad stuff from all the people? It's that creates the passion for people when they follow a match, that creates something very emotional, very passionate. So it's not really rational. So when it's not really rational, how we can help finally coming from the people that don't really know you. So I try to really take a lot of distance from that. Has it been easy? No. And it took me a lot of time to take some distance, not to pay too much attention, but I was scared to disappoint. I was nervous not being able to be at my best level. And but I always said I'm a very anxious person in my nature, and I had to face a different kind of fears, but I always found that there was a big challenge to face that and to go further and to be able to live with that and to say at the end I'm stronger than that. And I try to use something positive from what I hear. I try to change it in a positive way, even if it was hard. But I didn't accept everything, that's for sure. And this is life, I would say, with ups and downs. And we cannot make everyone happy, and we cannot make that everyone likes us. And that took me some time to understand that, but keeping some distance and not listening everything, I think, is one of the key.
Congratulations for an amazing career and an amazing life. And I was quite impressed because you came into the limelight very young. And so I want to ask a question about the importance of the entourage. So you must have heard mixed messages from everywhere.
Yeah.
And you had that at the time, you went through, and now you have a new career. What did you learn from your experience in terms of filtering? What are the people good for you? What are the people that are not good for you? Is there anything you can share?
It's the key. It's not the only key, but I always, when I give my conference, I always say that there were 3 levels, and the first level was what I had in myself. It was the level of the dream, because I wanted to become a champion, and it's what I was born with almost, because it was really part of me. So who I am at the beginning, and then the second level is the people I meet. The people I met, I still meet today, but for my career, the people I met, and because with all my potential at the beginning, I couldn't do it alone. I needed the good people at good time around me, and then the last level is the hard work. But just to talk about that, as everyone, my life hasn't been so easy all the time, and but first you need the support of the family, that's for sure, because if you don't get the support at the beginning, it's very hard, and it's different kind of support, but it's over there that you have to find the first things to be able to go further. My mom was a teacher, and school was very important for her, so sport was good, but she teach me that when we start something and we want to do it in a certain way, we have to give 200%. So she just asked me to be into it. And my dad wanted me to succeed, but was too nervous that it would never happen. So it was, a little bit, but they gave me a lot of support. And then my mom passed away when I was very young, and I left home when I was 17 because I had the feeling that I had to take my life really into my hands and to say, that's my dream, and I want to go through it. So I left home at a very young age, and I've been lucky at that time. A little bit earlier, I left home to meet my ever coach Carlos, that I worked for 15 years. And when I explain how we met, I always say we have to be lucky at a certain time to meet the good people, but we have to try to be smart to recognize these good people. And the key with Carlos, it was my dream and was there for a long time, but not so many people believed in myself. And he was the first who told me, if you want to become number one, I believe you can make it. I'm going to try to help you to reach it. So the confidence he gave me was a key. And I think when I tell the young people, the young kids today, first it has to come from the parents, but it's not always very easy also for the parents to give the self-confidence for their children, which is probably the best gift that we can give them. But with our personal stories, we do the best we can, and sometimes we cannot do it. But then if it doesn't come from the parents, when you meet someone who really believes in yourself, then I think that this can be an important people. And this is how I built my career, trying to find people going into my crazy project, because when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, telling everyone I wanted to become number one, they were looking at me like, she's dreaming, this little girl. Even my mom, when I told her one day I will be on this court, it was at Roland Garros, and I will win, she looked at me and she said, yes, my dear, but she didn't believe a single second. So I think that the dreams are important, and the people that believe in your dreams with you, I think it's something that is a key. So of course, and then it was Carlos, but it was also other people. For me, it was only a small group. I've been traveling with Carlos and with my physio later in my career. But then I had my doctor in Belgium, my fitness coach, that became really someone important in my team. And I needed to feel that these people were happy to work together. It was really a team that was there for me, and the mutual respect was something very important. I did like to travel with them. I did like when my coach was free to tell me, even if I was the one who was paying him, but he was free to tell me the truth, that I haven't been good in that, and that I have to improve this, and that if I want to reach my goals, I have to change that. To be in honest relationships was really a key for me, and in my new life, I try to do the same. Sometimes I have to be more in certain compromises, but as we all do. But the energy, how we can be connected. I always say to my coaches that the key, if they want to make the students improve, is how they can be connected to them, to who they are, and not only to the tennis player teaching a certain kind of technique, but to connect to the relationship. And that is something that I really learned, yeah. That's a good question. No, I think that the former players have a role to play, but that's for sure, and that's why I try to do in my academy, to do in different. I go into the schools and to share with the kids, because at the end, the message is that we're not talking really about tennis. We're talking about passion. We're talking about being invested by something and giving the best. So we have a role for this. I'm a little concerned. Of course, the sponsors will follow and tennis will remain popular, but I think that it's very important for the game, players in action, playing, that we still can have the good examples in terms of not only the level but the attitude. When we see, I hear some kids saying that I don't know if you like Kyrgios, the Australian player, that is completely crazy and respectful on the court, and I hear a lot of kids, now Kyrgios is the new model, but I think it's someone who should be, who should go away from the courts for a moment until he comes back with another attitude, because after that, in the clubs and in the academies, you have a kid that is throwing his racket away, and you ask him, and you say yes, but Nick Kyrgios is doing that. So I think that we have to be careful about that. We need personalities, but good personalities, and I think we've been lucky, really, in the last forever probably in the tennis game, that we had very good personalities. I hope it's going to keep going, and not only the former players will have to play a role, but also the actual players have a lot of responsibility also into that. For the rest, I try to be in situations that I have the feeling I can teach or give something or share my experience. It's not easy for young players to start to win and to remain the same, simple people, and being able to just live normally, and they don't think they are the best because they just won a tournament, and because at the end, Roger Federer, he won so many tournaments, but he knows it's just a human being like anyone else, and that he will have to continue his life away from the courts one day, and it's not really the results or the success, it's the values also that we learn and that we try, I hope, to share now with the younger generations. Yeah. Yeah, but this one was very particular because the night before I've played until midnight against Jennifer Capriati in 3 sets matches, and I won 7-6, and I was dehydrated, and so I think I went to bed at 5 in the morning because of the massage, and then when you play a match like that, the adrenaline has to come down. So I went to go bed at 5 in the morning, and then I was playing that match at 8 p.m. the same day. And until beginning of the afternoon that I went to warm up, I didn't know if I would be able physically, and then I warmed up, and I felt good. So when you went through this kind of match like the day before, it's like I felt that almost nothing could happen. In the first few games, we haven't been to play our best, Kim and I, but it was always tough to play Kim because the concurrence was so high and a lot of emotions. Being in the Grand Slam final against each other for the first time, it was something quite special. But my tournament was so good that I said, I just have to go to the end. And to come back on the fact that I'm nervous, I was especially nervous before working on the court, but usually in the Grand Slam finals, when I wasn't on the court, when the warm-up was done, I was ready for this, and I was really focused. I used to fight against the fact that I was really anxious before a match, because all the players are nervous. Pete Sampras said that the one who says he's not nervous before walking into the court is lying, because we're all very nervous and you don't know what's going to happen. You worked so hard to, at the end, hope to win, but you have in the Grand Slam 128 players who won the same thing, and it's 7 matches, it's 2 weeks, it's long. You don't know what's going to happen, and you you know that you will have to be at your best every second of the way for 2 weeks, and with you will have ups and downs, and you will have to fight against this. So this creates a lot of questions before a Grand Slam final, for example. Am I going to be at my best level? How my opponent is going to be? How the crowd is going to react? So all these questions make that you are, not at your best before a match. And for this, I just tried to use one thing. It was to visualize something positive. So 20 minutes before the match, I was really into my bubble, and I was imagining myself doing some winners, doing some aces, coming to the net, winning the points, even winning the match, holding the trophy. I was really seeing this in my head. So during this time, I was focused on something positive and not on my fears. My fears were still there, but I had no more attention to give to them. That is something that I really use to fight against the fact that I was nervous, because even today, I'm not the kind of people who has a strong self-confidence, but I always believe that I can go further, that I can find some resources, even if it's not natural. And I had this since I'm a little girl,
Okay, one last question. Sir.
Maybe a male question, I think it's fantastic, that it's going to be very hard and very long. But it's good not to know that, of course, because I'm not sure that when you know, this is what I like with the young kids now. It's the innocence, and they dream of something, and it will be tough, but I think they start to realize, but they don't know it. And I would say trust yourself. It's going to be tough but good, and trust yourself probably a little bit more. And because my coach really helped me to find some more confidence, and it makes the difference. You need humility, but you need also to find the self-confidence. So I would say it's going to be tough and beautiful, and trust yourself, because at the end, if you give your best, there is no regrets. And now I can look back and I say I have no regrets. People ask me about the fact that I didn't win Wimbledon, but it's part of the process. It's something that I couldn't visualize. Actually, all the other tournaments I could see myself winning, but over there I missed a little bit of confidence. And when I look back, I said I learned a lot of things from my defeats. And also, I'm a little bit crazy trying to find the perfection all the time. So it's good that there's something incomplete in my career that helps me. It's a little bit my therapy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. Time for lunch, apparently, now. Yes.